Hi, this is Phil Cheatham. In this segment, I'm going to talk about pelvic thrust as measured by the AMM system powered by TPI 3D analysis and reports. Here you have a curve of a very good pelvic thrust action during the entire swing. So if we look at the graph, along the x-axis we have time in seconds. Along the vertical or y-axis, we have pelvic thrust forward and back. So that's what the red curve is. So in a nutshell, pelvic thrust is the amount of forward and backward motion measured in inches with respect to the address position. So this is pelvic thrust. The thrust is measured from the center of the pelvis. So we can see during the backswing here from address to top of backswing, initially the pelvis thrusts backwards just a little bit and then thrusts forward. Now we expect it to thrust forward a little bit because we're measuring the center of the pelvis, and the pelvis on the backswing for a right-handed golfer rotates around the right hip. So that means the center of the pelvis is going to move forward as well as to the right. So here we see a little bit forward, but you can see that this says 1.3 inches. So it doesn't move more than about an inch. And then as we approach the top and start to then the downswing, the pelvis sits back. So we have a negative thrust. We actually push the pelvis backwards. It moves backwards, then as we transition onto the lead leg, it starts to move forwards again as we rotate around the lead leg. So this is a sign of good pelvic thrust, being that little bit of thrust during the backswing, and then a sit back during the downswing, and finally in finish, the pelvis is going to thrust forward a little bit because we're rotating around the left leg into finish, and it's going to move away from the address position towards the ball at that point. So now let's look at an amateur that we worked with just recently. She had, there we go, her initial pelvic thrust was what we'd call stable early extension. You can see that she has thrusted her pelvis very far forward. Here's 1.3 inches, so this is probably in the vicinity of at least 2 inches of forward thrust, and then around impact even more, up to 2.5 inches of forward thrust. So this is called early extension pelvic thrust, not a good thing. So how did we correct this? Well, we used biofeedback drills using the AMM system so that when she would thrust backwards, she would get a tone, and she would know that that tone was a positive tone and that she was supposed to thrust her hips backwards to hear that tone. So we did many drills using this biofeedback tone, and then we did some swing drills as well, teaching her how to push the hips backwards. So this is what the result was. At the end of the biofeedback session, we were able to get her sitting back with her pelvis and pushing the pelvis backwards. She didn't get to a negative thrust, but she certainly reduced the forward thrust, which was up here initially, and she was feeling much better. Her striking ability was much better. She was much happier with what she was doing. Another drill we gave to her to practice at home was basically putting a chair or a box behind her butt cheeks, behind her pelvis, so that she could push that chair or box away backwards as she was going through the swing and maintain contact with the box. That way she would know that she is in fact pushing her pelvis backwards. So a good example of how biofeedback can quickly change a motion pattern in the golf swing.